Ever have a dream that just won't go away? Or one that keeps popping up again and again? Maybe you've dismissed it over the years, or maybe you've grown frustrated because you try to lean into that dream and it just doesn't play out. It just doesn't happen. What then? I want to share today a little bit of, not a little bit, I want to share today about a big dream and vision that I've had for nearly a decade that has felt frustrating at times because of the length of time it took and the different obstacles to get to even where I'm at today. And today does not feel like being where I wanted to be or anywhere near where I wanted to be within 8 years of really seeing this dream come to life and the excitement that started to build inside of me. And I have a feeling I'm not the only one who's experienced dreams that felt like, oh gosh, what am I going to do with this? I don't know. Is this of God? This is a question that I heard a lot from different people. Is this really a dream that God's given me? Or we start to go into these hyper spiritual thoughts of just, oh, well, maybe this block means the enemy is attacking me, and then that means this. Or that means that God doesn't want me to go here. And unless I get the green light and God shows me this, then I'm not going to move forward in this way. But as I'm reflecting back on these dreams and ideas that come into our lives, I noticed this a couple of clear things. Number one, either it aligns with God and who He is and His character and His purpose overall in some way, or it doesn't. If it doesn't, yeah, it's not of God. But if it does, okay, then is it for me? Or is it for me in a season? And these are some of the things that we explored in one of the things that I did years ago called Rise Up Writers, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today. But identifying, like, is this something, for example, sometimes in someone who has an idea to write a book, they may think immediately, if I have the idea to do this, it means this. So if I have an idea to write a book, it means it's going to be traditionally published with a publisher, it's going to be on bookshelves somewhere, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. Whereas we might get a dream or a vision of something that gets us going, gets us started in a direction, but it gets reshaped over time. In this story, what I'm talking about today for my dreams and visions is how it has been shaped over time, but also remained a consistent and persistent dream. And I wanted to share it with you because I also wanted to provide updates to my community. What is going on? Why are some of the things that aren't accessible right now? And where can I find the content that's going to help me? Because that is my ultimate goal. I want to provide content, tools, resources that help you in really practical ways and experiential ways that shift internally so that you are able to experience more peace. Maybe it's more calm in your nervous system, more peace in living out who you are in Christ, and less people pleasing tendency, less waffling on your decisions and ideas. Maybe it's going through difficult and overwhelming seasons and coming through on the other side knowing, man, I experienced a lot of growth, even though this was really difficult. There are different ways that God used this for good. Not because we're trying to focus on, okay, well, every bad thing, God's just going to use that for good, but because we're leaning into God's presence with us in a struggle, in a challenge, so that we can experience the good that He can bring out of our situation, out of all kinds of different scenarios, because that is His desire. He has an overarching plan for the world, not just for us, but He sees beyond. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. So I tend to do that. I go off on these bunny trails, and that is part of my busy brain in action. So I'm going to rein myself back and dive into what some of these dreams have been, where it started, and where I'm at today, because I want you to be part of it. I want to hear from you. I want to hear specific content ideas or questions that you have. And also, when I'm sharing some of these things that I'm putting out there and stepping into, I want to know if that's something that would be helpful for you. And if there's something specific about that you'd like me to take into consideration. Doesn't mean I'm not promising anything, But just getting your feedback helps me keep that into consideration because I only have what I know. So, first of all, I want to take you back to the early days of coming off the ranch and healing from trauma and starting to write and to read. I was doing these activities to help my brain keep from feeling stuck. It literally felt like it was going to be in the mud forever. I wanted some kind of momentum, gears moving in my brain, literally how I pictured it and felt in my body. Trauma was so intense. And it wasn't just the trauma from the ranch, it was also the stress of coming out of there and changing jobs and all the way that trauma impacted all of us in the family and then past experiences. So all these things brought me to a place of just extreme weariness. One of the things I talk about that was a big part of this as well is a life of fear and acquiescing and not leaning into what felt like it was deep inside of me, hidden inside of me. I kept it hidden and I felt it unsafe to show to the world. And God used this healing process or worked in this healing process, let me say, to really help that to come alive. And I'm so grateful that He did. So I began with reading and studying, and I wanted to heal. And I was very interested in topics on emotional health and spiritual growth and then having experiences in the past in the church and then going through different experiences in the church and seeing gaps between church leaders, community group leaders, and counseling in areas that would help people who've been through a lot, where there is reactivity, where there is trauma, and where there's been abuse that's not easily identified, when there are destructive dynamics happening in people's lives and how that impacts them and their ability to engage with other people, to engage with God, to experience the beautiful things that God has for us. There's a gap, I believe, in our church communities, and I believe more and more people are talking about this, that we can, that I want to offer some tools to help support and develop and nurture how we connect with one another. So that's another topic. Let me get there in a second. Like I said, rein yourself in, Joe. Rein yourself in. Okay. So beginning with this studying and leaning in and just a lot of prayer, a lot of time in the Psalms and reading scriptures. And I couldn't even write. I want to say I journaled and I wrote all these great study notes, but I tried. Sometimes all I could do was get a couple words out, or it would be like super messy because the trauma was so intense in my body. My brain was struggling. I wanted to keep that brain moving. I wanted to move toward something better. And in that healing process, was asking God, I don't want to just heal from the rant. I don't want to just heal from the trauma. I want to heal from the unhealthy beliefs and the things that have kept me shaking in fear, saying yes when I want to say no, acquiescing to what other people think I should do, and really just not standing up, living out who I am as you design me to be. And who is that anyway? I don't know. Let's find this out. I didn't think that at the time, but that has definitely been part of what showed up. So sorry, I hit the mic. Hopefully, it didn't make too much noise. And the Spirit just kept revealing things to me, layer after layer. And it would be little things here and there. And I would sense this nudge from the Spirit to, maybe it was giving grace to myself, to allow myself to take the naps that I needed and to allow the grief when I wasn't accomplishing things that I wanted to accomplish. Because inside I was still highly motivated, but not motivated, if that makes sense. And I was seeing these patterns of what the Spirit was revealing and the insights, the observations that I'd had over time, and then during this process especially, coming through in books that talked about emotional health, spiritual growth, but a lot of them written by male pastors and male psychologists, to be honest. And I knew early on, I want something that's practical. I didn't know how much of a passion it would be for me to offer resources and content that are practical, helping people take the spiritual ideas of like concepts like do not fear. Well, we take something like that, we turn it into an action, a behavior, a should and a must, rather than looking throughout scripture, what is actually happening when God talks about fear? Do not fear. And How do we experience less fear? Because the way that we hear about it generally is, well, you just have to have more faith. You need to trust more. And believe me, that was me since being a little kid. God, I want more faith. I want to trust you. I'm scared to trust you, but I want it, and I want to do good things. I wanted to be good, to do good. And ultimately, it just kept perpetuating this like, I want to get it right. I want to do it right. And I didn't realize until a long time later that along with that came a fear, not just of failing. Like when I heard people say fear of failure, I was like, I don't know, because I keep trying, I keep trying. It didn't resonate as much with me. The way the fear showed up with failing was a little bit different. It was more, and it's still like, it still brings up a lot for me now as I think about it, a fear that if I didn't get it right, I can't even handle how bad I feel inside, how filled with shame and badness I feel. I don't know that, because I don't know this in my brain, but like there's a part of you that just doesn't know you can be accepted and saved. What is that like? And it's not to say that horrible things happened if I did the wrong thing, but that over time, trying to do the right thing, and this nervous system buildup really impacted me. And that is part of what God was undoing in this healing journey. I have a feeling if you're listening to this right now, it may be something you're experiencing as well, or have experiences with. Maybe you have tried to get it right, to be a better Christian, a better mom, a better wife, a better sister, a better husband, a better dad, whatever it is. You've tried to do better. And somehow our brains do this little connection thing that if we try to do better and we're getting it right, we're doing the right things, we're praying enough, we're doing our Bible studies regularly, we've got the faith, and we don't let people know how much we're really struggling because we need to have the faith. All these things start to get connected to more expectations and shoulds. And then it becomes more and more about performance and showing up a certain way that we have defined, that we have grasped onto. And it creates that false persona of ourselves that the true version of us hides behind. The shame, it's like, I'm too afraid to be out here. And so shame keeps me back, keeps me hidden. I don't want that for you. I don't want it for me, and I don't want it for you. I don't want it for the church as a whole, God's people as a whole. I want us to be really leaning into God's work in our lives personally, individually, in the unique ways that He's created us, and in community, and leaning into the unique gifts that we have, and learning practical ways, practical shifts and processes that help us experience the things that we're told we get to experience if we do it right. So rein yourself in again, Joe. Like I said, there's so much in my brain, so much I want to share, and so much I want to talk about, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this video today. I do a lot of process and planning, etc., and it can be so time consuming and energy consuming to prepare specific pieces of content. And because I've been doing so much back end stuff, which I'm going to talk about, I have not been getting some of the things out of my head at all lately. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep working on that process to build new habits inside of me so that it's not just stuck here, but that if there's something that's helpful for you, it's coming out. So I thought it might be helpful today just to talk about about the journey of the dream to where I'm at today, the obstacles and the challenges, and how that's shaping up some things, and then what I'm working on for you. So let me go back to just this process of leaning into the growth and reading and writing. And then I started to do a newsletter. So my blog was changing over time. It was very generic in the beginning, some of me processing, healing, and living in that place of deep reflection with God. and not making sense sometimes. Also, in a place that's like the words that I was using and the language that I was using still very much encompassed with these beliefs that had shaped me to just have more faith and to do it better and to also talk about God and spiritual things in a vague way that felt more like something to achieve and to get to versus a really deep connection to the process of it. I don't know if that's gonna make sense right now, but I was in this place, and so some of that writing, was me working through some things and started to shape up over time, and I started to realize emotional health is definitely something that I talk about, and how we understand different Christian phrases is a huge passion of mine. Also, how we care well in our communities and in our churches. So I started and then I as a writer, and I'm connecting with more writers, and I had done my blog. I wanted to write a book, but I didn't know what I wanted to write yet. Starting to just put myself out there, connecting with an agent. I did actually sign with an agent for a while. And I wanted to help other writers for a couple reasons. Number one, I saw a lot of Christians feeling compelled to write, whether it's a blog or a book or a memoir, something like that. They felt like God had prompted them to write, or a lot of people had told them they were supposed to write their story, or they should write about this or write about that. But two big thi- two big things. One is being a Christian writer in that Christian space. There's a tension of building a platform because if you're going to have a book, the agents and the publishers will tell you need to have so many numbers on your newsletter list or your email list, numbers of people following you, like certain dynamics that they're looking for. And it actually really makes sense because that is a marketing thing. The reality is they're not going to invest all this money into an author if they can't recoup the cost and actually make money on it because that doesn't make any good business sense. But as a writer, a lot of writers are feeling this tension of platform, like I got to get people interested in me. I got to get people to follow me, which is not a healthy way to start. That is actually coming from a place of fear and a place of like yes, insecurity. I want to use another word though. So I'm pausing because to me, it's not just like being insecure in who you are. It's not yet knowing, living, and experiencing who you really are. Not yet living out the fullness, like living out more of God's design. Something's holding you back. So to me, that's more than like just insecurity, just is not a sufficient word for this. But I think you get the idea. And it feels like when you think about platform, et cetera, it feels like I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to come off as like just trying to get people to do this. But the reality is that's what people feel initially with building a platform that I'm trying to get others to follow me. Really, what's happening is if you have a vision that God has given you, if you have a dream that God has given you, like I started this video with, then leaning into that is living out your calling. And it means you're going to face different challenges that are opportunities for your growth in character, in who you are, in how you show up in the world, how you use your gifts for other people, how you use your gifts as a service. Because if you have something that God has given you to share as an overflow and an outflow to other people, you need to let them know. One of the reasons I'm trying to get out of my head because I don't want it just up here. I want it to be meaningful for other people as well. So I see these writers wrestling, and I wanted to encourage them to rise up. Okay, if these obstacles are coming up, the different beliefs and the thought challenges that you're having, the experiences when people are just bloomin' rude on the internet, or you get a rejection when you've submitted a piece to like an article somewhere or a book proposal, for example. We need community, we need support and encouragement, and also someone to help call us to rise up and really lean into what it is God's called us to do. Because when you start out with that dream, just like I started this video with, you have a vision of something, but we don't know for sure how that's all going to play out. We get blocked and hindered in the process of becoming who we're supposed to be when we're trying to figure out what that's going to be. spinning in cycles. I don't know. That's something I do. I don't know if anybody else does that, but I might be known to do that. Spinning in circles, trying to figure out all the ways to make sure it looks the way that I think it's going to look. And then here's a practical way that trust and faith are walked out, moving toward the vision, toward the dream that God has given you, and doing the best that you can, but holding it loosely enough that God can shape and reshape, that you're aware and noticing when shifts are happening so that you can reflect and check in with God on that. That you are aware when what you thought was going to be one thing turned out to be something else. Now, is that really challenging and you're feeling like you can't move in a different direction? You may need to grieve the vision that you had and that it looks a little bit different. There's like grief doesn't always have to be this super big, heavy thing. Sometimes it's just a couple moments of acknowledging that a loss of something that we were connected to, even if we don't want that anymore. Does that make sense? Ever felt that? You're moving into a new season in life and you feel sad, but you're excited at the same time? Yeah, it's a little bit of grief. Allow that. A moment or two. Could be just, it doesn't even take that long. Sometimes I will pause or I will talk with a friend and say, I'm super excited about this and I'm feeling sad about, and then I just allow the tear to come or tears. Breathe. And if someone else is sitting with me and they can just be with me in that, it's like that little bit of loss, metabolized, gone. Now let's move forward. I'm looking at this with the writers years ago as I started the newsletter and also started realizing that not only was it soul care and encouragement for writers, but that God had given me an ability in researching and connecting to the technology and the processes and pulling things together to use different tools. Not to be an expert on any one of them, but to be able to figure things out in the sense of using certain tech and tools more than most writers that I was meeting, because we're coming from all different walks of life, different focuses in areas in our season, our blah, 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 seasons in our lives. And I have a background. I worked at Dell Computer for 5 years. When my dad got his first laptop he was an insurance salesman, and our laptop. Let me say, by the way, this was a big case which had a dot matrix printer in it and a laptop with orange, not green. It was orange on the screen. And one of the first people to get the early Apple systems, all of those types of things. So I would help him figure out how to do the DOS prompts. I did some programming. It is not my forte, but I believe that God's given me enough of that it fits this niche with writers. And now I'm using the term content creators, Christian content creators. So years ago, I started having a vision for some book ideas, and I did some like content on tension tamers for creating the platform, resources that I wanted to create. But in the back of my mind, what I really wanted to do, I wanted to develop the community more, but I knew I couldn't keep it free because I just can't keep doing all the free things. Eventually, I need to have an income too. I needed a source of income. And I started seeing short courses, like small course bundles. I would see like the really expensive courses or very expensive costs of going to a writer's retreat or a writer's conference, because you have the registration, you have food, you have travel. It can be thousands of dollars to go to to a writer's conference, depending on how much you have to travel and all the expenses involved there. I wanted to offer small courses on specific pieces. And if somebody is wrestling with, how do I just set up email with MailerLite? I used MailerLite. I'm still using it, but not for long at this time. But how do you set it up? Little bundles of things that could help people. I didn't know where to place that. I didn't know how to do it, but it was in the back of my mind. And then over time, I created Unleash Heart and Soul Care Sheets, which is a whole other story I'm not going to get into right now. Primarily a digital version with some teaching videos and PDF. And currently, you can't even access it as far as purchasing it new, because of all the work that I'm doing in the back end. I'm trying to get it done as soon as possible. But it took a long time to get there. It took 2 years because I was still healing from trauma. My brain still kept getting stuck. I still had family stuff to deal with and just different challenges, and it was still just wrestling through. Well, also, there was a lot of tech stuff. There were some battles that I do believe were spiritual in the background because the things that were happening that should have didn't make any sense to anybody who were far more technical than me were surreal. Eventually, it finally came out. So there was a lot of vision there with Unleash Sheets. I want to create more with it. I want to say, let's take not just this tool where we're processing life's challenges. Maybe we're processing a decision we need to make. We're processing challenging situations that came up. We're processing a challenging relationship or even the new awarenesses that we're having about patterns in our own lives or patterns in like the way that we communicate with people, etc. Or we're just using it to connect with God and to hear God's voice. That it's such a rich tool. It really is. There's so much to it. And then I want to extrapolate that and help people apply it in different ways with different areas of focus. So it would be like Unleash Sheets Plus. Years ago, that's been on hold for a long time. And then church care became more and more of a passion for me as well. And this concept, so I started this initiative or this hashtag called Connected Church Care because a couple of big things. One, connection to ourselves in our church communities is not real common. A healthy connection to self. What I mean here is a connection to awareness of our thoughts and feelings, of our struggles and our needs, awareness of our values, an awareness of patterns that are showing up that are actually causing problems for us or keeping us stuck in some way, awareness of patterns in relationships that aren't healthy for us or where we need to make changes. Because we use these Christian phrases or the Christian concepts of prayer and fasting even and um, just having faith and trusting and all these things as something that actually bypasses this term spiritual bypassing. We're bypassing our emotions. We're bypassing us essentially in order to put ourselves in a position of doing one more thing right, trying to get it right. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And so then we end up with believers in our churches who are totally disconnected to what's going on inside of them. Then they're projecting and telling to other people what they should do. They're feeling extra burdens on themselves because of all the things they should do, that they aren't doing enough of, that they are supposed to do and need to fix and get right. And not only that, then when you think you're doing the right things, what kind of attitude do you have to other people? Look at all the situations with the pastors that are spiritually destructive, abusive, manipulative, gaslighting, and causing issues. Not just pastors, but different church leaders. But we're seeing more, we do see the moral failures, sexual abuse, power over people, coercive control is you're using your power, your influence, you're coercing someone else to do what you want them to do and control them, control their narrative, control their reality, control their actions, etc. When you think you've got it right, you're going to be the one that's trying to get other people to do it right. And if they're not, if you're not even manipulating other people or you're not in a position of power or something, you could also be when you're so focused on trying to get it right because you don't feel settled when you feel bad. Like I didn't feel settled. I felt shame. When you don't feel settled in yourself and you have to keep doing right, then you start feeling like you know what's right. Think about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil right there in the garden where we know what is good and what is wrong. When we're the ones that are making that decision, we can excuse it thinking that it's all because we've drawn close enough to God, we've had more faith, we've had more prayer, we've trusted God more, and now we are the ones who know. Then what else happens? Somebody else doesn't do what you think they're supposed to do, and immediately you're going to correct them. Or if you don't do it directly to them, you might feel like you really need to, but you're not saying it. And so then you have some passive aggressive action. Maybe you're judging and condemning them without any curiosity for what's going on for them. Why is this action happening? Could there be a variable here that you're not seeing or understanding? So, sorry, I keep moving my mic. I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Mm. When we're not connected to ourselves, it breaks our connection to God and other people. Do you see that in what I just said? Can you see how that also breaks connection with God? Because now we're deciding and we've already decided what's all right with God. But then what happens? When we put this formula in place, if I do A, I got it right. I figured it out. I know the thing that God wants us to do, and I've got A, and it's the right thing to do. And then God's going to do B because He knows, and this is what I know is what God should be doing. Then I'm going to get C, which is what I see as God's best. And it may be God's best, but there's other variables at play, free will and other people, our own inability to see things that God sees, our distortions that affect things. So we think we're right. We're trying to do all this, and then we're changing the way that we interact with other people, which breaks that connection to others. And we break that connection with God because we're not really bringing our full, vulnerable selves to God. We don't trust Him to be with us when we're angry, when we're disappointed in Him, or we, all kinds of things. I'm getting off on my soapbox again. I'm trying to keep this limited, not too many topics. It's hard because there is a lot in my head. How this plays out in church care is so there was a time when my trauma response, my nerves felt literally like they were going to spring out of my body all the time at any time. And I remember being at an event for community groups or community group leaders or something, and we were just doing fun games. But because other people were yelling and they were just playing games, nobody was doing anything bad. But because of my trauma and what I'd experienced on the ranch and the workup in my nervous system, I was about to scream and let it out on everybody in that room. I wanted to let loose in the worst way. I also didn't feel okay to let loose at all or anywhere. What I needed was someone to see my body's reaction, how things were starting to escalate inside of me, the anxiety building up, and maybe notice that would have been great. But I needed an outlet. I needed a space to be able to help my nervous system calm down. So, anyway, I bring this up because had I exploded, who in the room would have known how to deal with me? Probably nobody, maybe somebody, I don't know. This is just a picture in general, but there's so many different nuances that happen in our small groups, life groups, community groups, whatever you want to call them, Bible study groups, and then also in dynamic and church in general, where we can't really be, we don't feel like we can really be our true selves. And it's causing us to, it's fueling and perpetuating that pattern of performance, persona, presentation versus the work that God wants to do in us that helps us experience calm and peace and rest and wisdom and discernment, not as one more thing to do right, but because it's an outflow of our connection with God, a real connection, really connected. And a lot of church leaders are trying to counsel people without the training, or they're not even having good enough training to identify what type of support and help would be helpful for members of their community, because a lot of times they're just stepping in and then they're perplexed and trying to figure out, like, how do I help this person? They're acting this way and they shouldn't be acting that way. So now what do we do? Okay. Woo! Going back to it's connected church care. That's the initiative. What I had in mind in there is I want to also do courses that help people connect more deeply to themselves, to others, and to God. And in an example of that would be in a small group. How do we help people, one, share more vulnerably, create safety in the group so that people can share more vulnerably, and lean into processes that help us do safe levels of vulnerability, for example, to help the group become more connected. Because chances are you've been in a group or many groups or Bible studies, and there's a prayer request. And what is the prayer request about? Somebody's aunt or uncle who's sick, or somebody who lost a job. Things that are easy to see and to pray for, they're not personal. How's God working in your life? How did that verse challenge you? Or how are you encouraged? What fears are coming up for you lately? What anger have you experienced lately? Anything that goes deeper to our real experiences for real connection between other people and God. Okay, so now we have three big areas, right? And everybody would say, you got to just focus on one. You got to focus on one. And I tried to move that direction. In 2020, just before shutdown, I put Rise Up Writers on hold. I went to grad school. I put my book proposal on hold, put everything on hold so that I could go to grad school and get my counseling degree, also for partially for income, partially because I wanted to do EMDR with people, partially because I believed that this was an area that God was calling me in. And I believe that the experience and the training was also going to better equip me to provide the kind of content and resources that had been in my mind and heart for years by this time. So that happened, started the week before shutdown, got to go in person in California for kickoff and then school. And since then, now I have the therapy, which is for individuals in Texas, and my other business with these three areas. The primary content around emotional health, spiritual growth, developing who you are, how you show up in this world, so that you can experience a more fully alive life, not just in the future in heaven. You don't have to drudge around here on earth waiting for heaven someday because everything's going to be better someday and somewhere out there, but because God is with you today and God is shaping, and you are not evading or using the defense tactics that keep you from the good God wants you to experience with Him. So, in that, we're talking about things like boundaries, we're talking about attachment, we're talking about ways that we communicate and how we process different things, process like things that are keeping us disconnected, for example. What's coming up in that exchange there? What's making us jump to, okay, I'm just going to give the spiritual perspective, and versus checking in with ourselves, what's going on here? What does that challenge look like? Anyway, that's more my thought process in the back end. But like when it comes to boundaries, for example, not just there's lots of people who talk about boundaries, what are boundaries, etc. So I want to offer some courses on that, but I really also want to take it beyond that to say, learn this is a concept that's in mind, learning the language of boundaries, learning the language of connection. For example, what does it actually sound like in communication with other people or in our own minds? For example, because when we're setting boundaries, we may say, I set this boundary that this person couldn't do that, which is actually control. It's not a boundary. And how do we reshape the language around it and our understanding around it so that we are more anchored and able to use these healthy principles in a way that's healthy at the end of the day? Because if we're using the wrong language and the way that we're connected to those words and the meaning and the motivation, then we can end up in a place we don't want to be. But when we lean into some of the meaning and the motivation tied to things, etc., then we are actually more grounded in who we are. In that place, we are strengthened. That is being strengthened in Christ, being more fully connected to and attuned to who we are and God's acceptance of us as His created design. And then leaning into the process of growth so that we can be the design that He's shaping, that He's bringing us into. So, a couple of updates on where these things have shifted a little bit, and then the obstacles that I've had and where I'm going with them. because I want you to be part of it, like I said, and where you feel led to be. Not because I said it or because I don't want to put pressure on people at all, but I want to share these things to also be honest and say, hey, if you want to join me in this, prayer, financial support, just encouragement, even sending me an email with encouragement, that's always nice too. You know, however you want to be part of it. Or if you want to be part of these different initiatives, let me know what speaks to you the most. What are you most interested in? If you want to share why, that's great. That helps me make sure that I'm keeping all your perspectives in mind when I'm building this stuff. So all these dreams and visions have been out there for a while, and I started where I could with what I had at the time. I did different things. I got Unleashed Sheets out there in a couple of different platforms, but I've had to pull all of it back because I had a lot of broken processes, broken tools, and then tried new tools, and those were not working either, not well enough. And also having too many things that are not going to work for the vision. Okay. So pulling back, trying to streamline things, resetting my processes, and cleaning up digital clutter along the way. Because anybody got digital clutter? Photos that you haven't looked at, duplicates, triplicates, and quadruples of photos or files because you didn't know where to store it. And then it went in all these different places. And now you're like, I don't even want to look at it because there's too much stuff out there. Maybe just me? Okay, well, that's what was happening. So I did some of that over the holidays too, just really pulling back. Where is all this content that, not just content, but like life stuff for years, right? But what are the tools that I'm going to use to set a foundation for what I'm working on? So I'm not going to go into what all those tools are, but I do want to say that it has been very time and energy consuming. It has been financially very challenging because this is investments upfront, not making enough to be profitable yet at all, and it needs to be. So that's been challenging too. Also, just trying to figure out how to bring all this together. But I really feel like I'm at a place where now there is really good movement happening, and I'm working at the pace that I can, the place where I believe God. Like sometimes we have busier seasons. I'm in a busier season, but trying to not let it overtake my life. Let me put it that way. The three big areas that this falls into. My main stuff has the most pieces to it probably because the other two are on hold until I can get this all built up. But if I have a team in place with these new processes and the back end tools and resources pulled together, then I can build a team that helps to bring this vision to you, these dreams out there. I'm holding it loosely, but it's not leaving. To me, that's an indication that there's something there. Maybe it looks the way that I've had it laid out in my mind. Maybe it doesn't. For now, I'm going to start with the main stuff and build onto it as I can because the passion is not dying at all. So here's an update of where things are. When it comes to my main, like the blog, the YouTube, the YouTube, it sounds like when people talk about, anyway, that thing, I got and I'm not going to say the word. Anyhow, so my blog, articles on crosswalk and books, book writing that I'm working on in the background too, because I still want to write the books and I got multiple books I want to write, membership groups and Unleashed Sheets, workshops, that kind of thing. That's all part of the main stuff that I do. And that's including things like update to Unleashed Sheets with updated videos. I'm going to record some new videos as I put this into the new platform. And also the flow. Like if you want to go beyond Unleashed Sheets, then you go into Cultivate Together, potentially the growth community, and or like Unleashed Plus, where you can take some practical, have some additional tools and resources to use Unleashed Sheets further in your life in a personal journey of growth and development with God and potentially with other people. So I've been asked to create like a guide for working with other people or working with couples, etc. That's definitely on hold. But Unleashed Sheets, Cultivate Together is the membership-based growth community. It's been such a beautiful community. We're still using Heartbeat, and right now the course content is on Heartbeat for the members, but I'm going to build it into this new platform. And there's just different video lessons there, but the crux of it that's most beautiful, most helpful for people is it's a place where you're going to receive trauma-informed perspectives, also abuse-informed perspectives, and growth-focused lens, growth-oriented lens in a community to build connections, exchanges, and experiences that help you experience growth, help you experience a process of growth that helps you develop. and identify certain areas in your life where the Spirit is already prompting you. The Spirit is already providing some kind of a little nudge. Hey, this has been happening a lot. And it's not that nudge. Sometimes we could take it as a shame based message and now we're bad in some way. But sometimes those messages are merely a recognition so that we can grieve, we can make amends, we can make reparations where needed, and turn a different direction. That repent is turning into the life that God has for us, turning a different way. And the way is the life God has for us to experience and to live with Him. So when we have strength through the community and tools and resources to help you lean into those things one layer after another. My healing journey, one layer after another, continues. It's not going to stop. So we have the growth community, different courses and short-term groups that I want to do. I did the habit room, moving toward what matters without what burdens. That is something I did for 12 weeks. I loved it. I loved what we did in there, and I want to develop that as well. So as you can see, when I have a team that I can create that content and spend the time with the groups and the group coaching calls, etc. But the way I approached habits is like the way I approach a lot of other things is going back to the process. What is happening? Not just here's some good ideas to implement and then tell me whether or not you implemented it in the group. Because the whole reason people were in that group is because they've tried that and it's not working. You set new goals. You might even set all these great things in place. You get out your planner, you get out the accountability tool, whatever it is, but it doesn't happen. Why? What's happening? What needs to shift in the process to help you develop the habits? And does it need to shift into a smaller habit that leads you to a goal that you have, whether it's for personal growth, whether it's a professional thing, whether it's a specific task at home, something like that. So I want to do the habit room again and continue to beef that up because there's a lot of personal growth and development that are part of it. And then also just, it's a different approach than what I know of anybody else doing with habits. So then different courses, maybe around boundaries, around the language things that I talked about. And a lot of this, underneath it is also these concepts of self stewardship and soul stewardship so that we are ultimately stewarding the lives that God has given us by developing who we are and how we show up in the world. And that shows up as a kind of theme throughout a lot of this, pretty much everything I do. So the different courses and short-term groups and workshops, I have a few different workshop ideas that especially use Unleash sheets and other tools and processes to lean into something really specific. So one, like the rest and reset, you've probably heard other people use a title like that, I would imagine, because I don't think that's a very unique title. But anyway, refresh and reset, where somebody's in a season of change and transition, and maybe you haven't been doing the things that your dreams aren't coming, like you're not leaning into your dreams, you're not seeing anything happen with visions that you've had, or you don't even know if it's true, or you haven't allowed yourself the space to be you. Maybe you've been a mom for decades and you don't know what it's like to just be like, who are you now? What do you do with that? And so one workshop would be around that. Also, different things that like with unleashing kind of these emotional, I call it emotional scripts. It's the ways that we're connected to emotions that are affecting our ability to feel what we need to feel, our ability to um, really lean into processes of growth that include emotions. I'll leave it at that. So all of that is the main thing. Of the writers is now content create no, yes. Creator Life Collective. Keep changing the name. I would have just done Creator Life if that was available, but I don't think it was. But Creator Life Collective, really there's some public free stuff, but then it and then a group that I want to do. And where it's shaped up from Rise Up Writers is definitely still the soul care aspect. Still, let's lean into your gifts, the vision God's given you, and hold it loosely, listening to the Spirit as things shift and responding to God in that process. That is one piece of it. But another piece of Creator Life Collective will be this, and maybe you've heard me talk about this before because it's still on hold, but it's big part of this vision. Working sessions where we're diving into some of the tech stuff that holds people back. Because like I mentioned, I could do the research and I just have a knack for helping people figure things out enough. Not everything. And I'm like super going into getting support for the new tool that I'm using. One of the reasons I'm doing some of the shifts that I'm doing is to get the support that I need. that's beyond me and to help make sure that the trajectory that I think I'm doing is where I need to go. But there are a lot of things that Christians who are creating online content, writers, authors, bloggers, social media influencers, YouTubers, whatever, course creators, they're stopped and they're blocked because it's like, oh, wait, now I need to consider this. And do I need an automation? What's automations? Where do I go for automations? Oh, email. What email service should I use? And why should I use that one? Course hosting. What tool should I use? And so I want to help people with the tech things and facilitate not just me doing it, but when we're together as a group, we're learning from one another. And then also brainstorming sessions, things like that. So something different than what I see out there. And I highly support some of my friends who are doing writer-based groups, etc. But this is just a very different vision and initiative, and it's been with me for ages. So please pray. It has been frustrating that it's taken this long, that the tools just weren't gonna work for what I needed it to work for. And I'm gonna talk in another video about dealing with disappointment. There are things that, mistakes or things that I wish were different for me, but there also had benefits. I'm not gonna get into that right now. And then lastly, connected church care. My vision for that is to bring a website together. So hopefully at some point somebody else is creating this website, but it's a website that brings together the resources that help emotional, spiritual, relational connection and care in our faith communities, the different trainings that are out there, the different speakers, tools, resources, etc. I want to bring that into a collective space because there's so many pockets of people out there and they're going up against leaders who are poo-pooing their idea or just different obstacles. And then also a network where we're connecting in community, where the people who are bringing these resources out there are supported and have that brainstorming option, etc. And then also my own courses, which would be, like I said, on personal connection and especially group connection in church communities, connecting more to ourselves so we can connect to others and to God, creating safe communities, etc. So, woof! Wow, it's been almost an hour. I did go down a lot of trails. I never know how many I'm going to go on, or I try not to, but I do feel like it all ties together too with what I talked about in the beginning. These dreams and these visions, they shift and they change, and we're changing. We're growing. We cannot know what we do not know. And boy, do we spin in circles trying to know what we can't yet know, or trying to know because maybe in some way by knowing the why, the how, the who, the what, that'll be enough information to help us feel settled, and then we can move forward. If there's a dream or a vision, there's a reason it's there. What if right now we just paused and said, Lord, here's what I'm feeling about this dream or vision. Here are the thoughts that I have about this dream or vision. Here's my questions, my doubts, my concerns. Here's my excitement, the things I feel confident about. Bringing all of this to you, Lord, and asking you to speak. Taking a deep breath. Saying, thank you, Lord. Thank you for being you. Thank you for putting this in me. Help me to steward this well today and in the future. And what do you have for me today? So that I'm not stuck in what should be or what I believe is going to happen in the future. I'm also not stuck because I'm focused on the past and all the reasons why I shouldn't do this or can't do it, or I'm not the right person to do this. Help me simply to lean into you and your voice, to respond to you. Man, I can't wait to see what that brings. I want to see more of you and who God designed you to be in this world. We need you. I hope this message has been encouraging. And even though I'm sharing details about my own vision, I'd love to hear if you have a dream or vision. And if you found help in this video somewhere along the way, would you share that below? Maybe what you share will help someone else. And go ahead and hit like and share the videos. That's always helpful too. But ultimately, I hope you hear my heart for you. to lean into. I know I use that word a lot, lean into, because it's not striving, it's not pushing, it's not trying, it's not clawing, but just like, yeah, I'm leaning into you, God, and to who you are, to how you've made me, and to how you want to work in my life. I look forward to that. Take care. Bye, everyone.